Howdy and welcome back. Today we'll be covering the next part of our platformer example game development. And so this lesson is going to cover sparks and dust. With sparks and dust, those two things will of course be including new sprites. I have already made these sprites just to save time on this video, but here are what the two sprites look like. Hit spark sprite just has the following animation. This is to represent the impact of the bullet into a wall. Then down below I have dust, and so this is just supposed to be a little poof of dust that slowly disappears. I have them both origined at the center, whatever works for you so long as you stay consistent with your things. Now that I have this set up, let's go ahead and create the objects needed. So of course, I'm going to first cover creating a new object for Spark. So we head over to objects, create a new one. This will be obj_hit_spark. This will represent the impact of a bullet into the wall. And so for us to address this, we only need two events. Our create event that will cover initializing our variables. Let me make sure to zoom in on this for y'all. Inside here, the create event, we make sure that the image index is set to be 0. The image speed is set to be 100%. The speed of the bullet is set to stop. And there we go. We have the create event done. The reason why we have these three items is because we're actually going to have our bullet turn into the hit spark. And rather than having to deal with changing the code and the sprites getting swapped out, we can just create a separate object that does not have all of the other restrictions that the other code has. It's easier in this way for us to get this accomplished. And then after that, we create another event at animation end. And this, we simply do instance_destroy as soon as we're done with the animation to show that it has impacted the wall and disappeared. And let's make sure we select our sprite. And so this should be the hit spark. There we go. So now I have a sprite to represent impacting a wall. But we actually need to do the code that supports updating it and turning it into the hit spark. So if we jump over into our code for bullet, the only spot that has to be updated is our post draw. This is to check before a collision specifically with a wall. Or a wall collision. Rather than destroying ourselves, we can do instance change, and we're going to turn into an obj hit spark, and we want this event or the bullets destroy event to fire, and we want the create event to fire on the hit spark. That's what that true covers. So that way we get the new variables needed for hit spark. And that's actually all we need to address in this case. Let's go ahead and run this. Assuming everything is set up correctly, we should be able to see the bullet turn into a hit spark upon impact with a wall, but nothing else. It'll still just naturally destroy itself whenever it collides with any of the other items. And so I can get the bullet or the gun, and we see we have a little collision with the walls. So it's not always perfect at certain angles. It kind of goes into it and it kind of hovers a little bit outside of this. We could, to kind of improve upon this, make sure that the collision boxes are as tight as possible for the bullet. I can maybe, yeah, it's this portion. I'm going to shrink this down just a bit. And hit spark, let me make sure the collision mask is good for that one. Yeah, just the center portion. That should help get closer to hitting the walls rather than those odd angles that we're sometimes into. But just because of the way it's being handled, we may kind of go into the wall a bit depending on exactly how it's being shot. But this gives us a nice little setup for having a nice collision animation. Adds a little polish to the game. So that covers just the spark. The next part is building up the dust. Whenever I land, I want a little cloud of dust to pop up. So let's go ahead and jump over into objects. I'm going to create a new object, and this will be obj_dust. The dust object is also fairly lightweight. We only have 3 events. The create event creates tons of dust values, randomize values. So our image speed, how fast is it going to be moving? Well, that's randomly based, random range. It'll be between 50% and 100%. We will also have image index. This will be within a range of 3 to 6. That way it just randomly picks one of the frames. Our horizontal movement speed is going to be random range between -2 and +2 pixels. Our vertical movement speed will be a random range between -2 and +2 pixels. The image X scale will either be set equal to choose, either 100% or -100%. It'll just flip it. Or image Y scale will be equal to choose 100% or -100%. And now we have a ton of randomized items every time a single dust particle is created. So therefore, all of the dust particles should look different from each other, or at least has a chance to look different. We then have a step event. This one is fairly lightweight. This is move and slow down. Our X position is plus equals our horizontal movement speed. Our Y position is plus equals our vertical movement speed, and the horizontal movement speed slows down by multiplying it by 90%. The vertical movement speed slows down by multiplying it by 90%. Then last but not least, our animation end. This just wraps it up and makes sure that we destroys ourselves. Nope. An instance underscore destroy. And so this handles us creating a single dust particle. We need to make sure that we add into our code how to update and place dust particles whenever we land on the ground. But we're going to probably want to have dust elements added into random parts of our game. So I'm going to make a small little script here that will do that. Create script. I'm going to call it make dust. And we receive 3 variables. Amount, X cloud, and Y cloud. So what these 3 things address is how many dust particles we create, whether the cloud can open up in the X direction, and whether the cloud can open up in the Y direction. Based off of this, we actually just need to specify, we repeat ourselves the amount of times to then create a with instance underscore create underscore layer X, and then the box bottom layer, current layer we're in. And what are we creating? A dust particle. And let me maximize this view for us. That wraps up the other side. This closes off here. There we go. Now, what do we do in here? Well, if xCloud is false, then horizontal movement speed should be set equal to 0. If actually these are not related to each other, if yCloud is false, that tells us we don't want to move in the vertical movement speed, set that to 0. If both of them are true, we don't do anything here. Now that we have that, we can update our player state to free, and down in the portion where it checks to see if we're on floor or we're not. Let's see. Here, if we're not on the floor, that means we're in the air. But in the else clause here, this tells us we have landed. Right before we actually switch it, we can check if the sprite index at this moment is SPR_player air. That means we're coming down, we're about to land, and we're about to switch it. I'm going to go ahead and call my dust cloud, or make dust script, and I'm going to pass in how many dust elements do I want. I'm going to put 50. You can play around with it. 10 could work, 50 could work, 100 could work. Your game, you play around with this value, see what it does. xCloud, I do want the cloud to expand in the X direction. I do not want it to expand in the Y direction. However, I'm going to make this a false. Close that up. And now, assuming I've typed everything, whenever I land on the surface, I should have a nice little cloud of dust up here. And so I drop, where is my dust cloud? Somewhere I am missing something. All right, let me check. All right, found the error. I had accidentally typed in a single equal sign as an assignment rather than a comparison. So it's always important to check your code. And so as we see here, it was just missing one character. All right, I found a mistake in our object dust. I forgot to actually specify I wanted the dust cloud as my sprite. And so maybe you got that part, maybe you also missed it like me, but that was the mistake along with the other one. Now with both of those things in place, there we go. We have a beautiful dust cloud on impact. Now you can change the value from, I have 50, you can drop it down to a lot fewer or more, it's up to you. But now we have a wonderful little dust cloud every time we land on the ground. They are actually random, but the more dust clouds you create, the more well-shaped it'll end up being. Theoretically, the dice could end up rolling and everything ends up being on one side more than the other. But it's a lot clearer to see stuff like that if you have fewer dust clouds. But that wraps up today's video. If you'll have any questions, just let me know. Otherwise, everyone have a good one.